Hey everyone, so I am back with a training summary, my first one of 2017, if you guys can believe it. I'm having a hard time believing it. I just got back from Australia, gave you guys a few clips there at the beginning, me feeding kangaroos, me on a beach in paradise. It was pretty nice, pretty amazing trip, but it is definitely good to be back. So I'm back in Columbus, Ohio. Training. This footage here though, I'm showing you guys some footage from California. So I went to California and I was training with Tina and Joey. They're some of my good friends from the USAPL. They compete in USAPL. They're very good. Tina is top 3 in the nation. Joey is top 10. So we're all going to be competing at the Arnold. That was 365 pounds for triples. This here was the next week at Barbell Brigade in Los Angeles. Barbell Brigade is honestly probably one of my favorite gyms that I have ever been to. I just love the vibe. I love the energy. There's so many amazing lifters there. It's always a fun time. I always see people I know there. And it just is like a lot of motivation just training there. I don't know. I find that the atmosphere that I'm in, if it's very dull, very boring, very stale, then I tend to not have as good of lifts. But if it's energetic, if people are lifting heavy as well, if I'm lifting the heaviest weight in a gym, I honestly find that not motivational at all. When I see other girls kicking ass, when I see other girls squatting, over 300 pounds, when I see guys squatting 600 pounds, deadlifting 600 pounds, like that motivates me a lot. So that was actually my last lift in California. That was 360 pounds for sets of 4. And so my lifts overall felt pretty crappy in Australia. It's just really hard for me when I travel to just being at so many different gyms and so many different environments. It's really hard to be consistent. So here we're adding in some tempo squats. This was just 365 pounds for some tempo squats, 3-second descent and 3-second ascent, whatever. When I got back in Columbus, so this is at one of my gyms that I go to. I go to a couple different gyms here in Columbus, Ohio, but this is kind of my place that I can go where I know the manager really well and I love it there. But it's not a social gym. So if I just need to go and just get a lift in without talking to people, which sometimes I really do enjoy doing, then I go here, because the other gym, Beyond Limits, where I train downtown, I also do train people there, and I basically know everyone there, so it's hard to get in and out of there in less than 3 hours, sometimes longer, so because most of that is talking. So that was actually tempo deadlifts, and here this is getting back into heavy weights. So this is 355 pounds for doubles. I actually did a triple on one of my sets just to boost my confidence a little bit. So this honestly is not that heavy of weight for me in like the big picture. My max is about 400 pounds, 355 pounds shouldn't feel like a big deal. But when I was training in Australia, I found it very hard to be consistent. I was going to basically different gyms every single day. I didn't really know what the atmosphere would be like in every single gym. I didn't know what the bars would be like. I didn't know what the weights would be like. I mean, it's honestly so unpredictable when you're traveling. So I found myself just overall not having the greatest lifts. My strength definitely was like way up and way down, because I would go from training at literally some days I was waking up at 5 a.m. to go train because I had a lot of family stuff going on in Australia. And then some days I found myself training at 7 p.m. So I was not consistent in terms of the timing that I was training or the environment. So it's definitely hard to feel like you're progressing at a steady rate when all the variables in your life are unpredictable. And basically when I was there, this was 385 pounds. I see my smile. I was pretty excited about how good these felt. The first time that 370 pounds plus has actually felt good. So this was back in Columbus, feeling good at Beyond Limits. So basically my life in Australia was just kind of like unpredictable in terms of like what I would be doing every day. I had a lot of family stuff going on. Obviously with the holidays that took precedence, so I missed some training days and then had to cram in more training on other days. So overall just kind of inconsistent and just hard to be on top of my training with as much persistence as I am here in the States. I mean, I still trained 5 days a week, but it just was not the quality that I am used to here in the States, here in Columbus. Even when I travel here in the States, it's a bit more predictable than being in a different country. I also spent some time in Sydney, and then I was in Perth, so just traveling across Australia as well. So one movement that has been feeling amazing recently is actually overhead press. So here I am doing 90 pounds for sets of 6 reps, which is crazy good for me. I have never had a super strong overhead press. It's always been something that I've just struggled with because I've had a shoulder injury that I've dealt with for the past 3 years. And so really taking the time to focus on mobility, focus on rehab exercises, focus on rear delt strength, focus on overhead press strength with movements that do not bother my shoulder. Here, this is one of my favorites, face pulls for rear delts. So if you're a bodybuilder or someone who wants to build some shoulders, don't forget your rear delts. They're a vital part of your shoulder development and also a vital part of having that fullness to shoulders that is definitely sought after for the stage, for figure, or for bikini, or physique, whatever it may be. So here is 320 pounds. This was actually earlier this week. 4 sets of 6 reps. Felt amazingly fast. Finally, it's feeling back to normal. Honestly, there were some days in Australia. There was one day where I did 330 pounds for 7 reps. It felt normal. One day I couldn't even do 330 pounds for like doubles. I was trying to squat at like 6 a.m. and it just was not happening. So really, when you travel, you have to take it with a grain of salt. I mean, obviously your nutrition's different, your sleep is different. That's a huge part kind of maybe why I felt a bit off. I just was sleeping in a different bed. I was my sleep wasn't, I still was like jet lagged for a lot of the trip. So there you can see I was pretty excited. 320 pounds for sets of 6 felt amazing. So then here is just another side view of it, just to see my bar path, and depth is looking good. My stance is feeling good. I'm feeling pretty powerful and pretty strong in this, which is quite the change from in Australia, where I just felt kind of off in general, just overall. And I actually like lost a little bit of weight when I was traveling too, which I tend to do. I'm not the type of person that tends to eat more when they travel. I tend to eat less because I'm just like running all over the place and going from here to there and here to there. Then we go out to eat and I, try to order something healthy. Well, generally when you order something healthy in Australia, it is like, I don't know how to describe it. It's hard to get enough carbs, I've found. So I would order like a side of potatoes and it would be like one small serving of like 4 ounces of potatoes. So I found it harder to get carbs, which is kind of weird. So I would stock up on bread and that sort of thing wherever I was staying. But it overall just was interesting. I just found myself losing a couple pounds, so that threw off my leverages a little bit. And then, obviously now that I'm back, I can get adequate nutrition and be a little bit more consistent. It's just hard too when you're traveling to track macros with consistency. For me, I find I need to track macros to make sure I'm just getting enough. I tend to undereat if I don't track macros. So this was the other day. This is 365 pounds for sets of 4. These felt really good. As you can see here, my stance, or maybe you can't see, but my stance is a tiny bit wider than it has been in the past. I was dealing with an adductor injury last year from about March until just about a month and a half ago. Finally, knock on wood, it is not hurting me right at this minute, or during this training cycle. So my stance being a bit wider is something that I can do. So as you'll notice too, on deadlifts I do take full resets. This is something that I'm doing to perfect each rep individually. I obviously do not on tempo deadlifts, but on my heavier deadlifts I do. I find that it helps me maintain better back neutrality, not rounding my back as much. I do not use momentum off of the ground. And 2, with competition, it is very specific to 1 rep. So I want to practice each rep as a single as opposed to using momentum off the floor or whatever it may be. So something I've also been adding in quite a bit is some light hip thrusts. So nothing crazy heavy. light, working on that glute activation. So here is just another set of my deadlifts, obviously joking around with Tyree. I think it was Tyree, Zach, and Joe Sullivan. So some of my good friends from Beyond Limits. Always awesome to have their support and have them at the gym. But I have, okay, so as I was saying, something that I've been working on, and my coach, so my coach, you guys have heard me mention this, but if you're new, then my coach, he is Jacob Orms, or he goes by Jacob Allen on Instagram. So he is my coach, and he's been my coach for a little bit over a year now, since last November, I believe, November of 2015. So he has been adding in some just very light hip thrusts. So light for me is about 155 pounds or so, just really focusing on the contraction at the top of the hip thrust. And I've noticed a difference in my lockout. So as you can see here, I'm not locking out my knees quite as much and then pulling with my back as I have had a tendency to do. Now, it is a work in progress. I'm not perfect. My form, I'm always critiquing it. Like, even looking at these deadlifts right here, I look at them and I'm like, ugh, they could be better. Like, I could not lock my knees out there. I could wait a little bit and simultaneously lock out my knees and squeeze my glutes. But I noticed that it has gotten better with working on hip extension and really focusing on the contraction of my glutes, doing glute bridges, doing active warm-ups where I'm doing some body weight hip thrusts before I either squat or deadlift. So here, this is 145 pounds for sets of 6 reps with competition pauses, or at least I was trying to. Sometimes I have my friends do pause commands, so I'm making sure that I'm pausing enough and not cutting it short, because that is something that can be quite a change. I would recommend, if you are planning on competing in especially the USAPL, because they are very strict with pauses, with competition pauses, I would practice those at least once a week in your training. So don't do all touch and go, because it is completely different. You might be able to touch and go, let's say 135 pounds for a triple, but then not even be able to pause one of those if you are seriously touching and going and using momentum off your chest. So you just need to make sure that you're practicing the pauses, and your strength is, you're basing your strength off your pause reps and not your touch and go reps. So here you can see I am doing 240 pounds. That's only about 60% of my 1RM. For some tempo squats. So that's something we've been adding in just once a week for a little bit of extra volume, and also maintaining tightness and working on keeping the tension in my glutes, which is something that keeping the force in my glutes and really utilizing my glutes. I tend to have lazy glutes. So this was a bench video, 155 pounds for 4s. Those actually felt pretty good, which was exciting. And then here's another hip thrust video. So as you can see here on my hip thrust, I'm really making sure that I'm squeezing at the top and not just like swinging through it. So hip thrust it can be something that you can easily get injured if you do it wrong. So it's a lot of weight on your lower back. It's a lot of weight on your glutes, obviously. So you need to be careful. I would not recommend starting out with heavy hip thrusts right away. Do banded hip thrusts, do weighted glute bridges, work up in weight and really squeeze and make sure that you're slowing down the motion and not just going through the motions. So hope you guys enjoyed my summary and enjoy this last little clip with me and my dad training in Australia. Leave questions and comments below, and I will talk to you guys soon.